Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the gray area. My name is Mr. Bennett, or you can call me Paul. I don't care. Like I said, I don't have an alter ego out here, but I am happy that to launch this show tonight. I'm happy that you guys took time out of your Sunday. I know it's playoff weekend. I know the Lions are playing tonight, but some of you guys decided to hang out with us tonight. So we thank you for being with us on this debut show where we basically explore our backgrounds tonight, where we basically have a cultural exchange. So the purpose of this show, this gray area, obviously, you can look at myself and my partner here. We're very different people. We could have very easily named this show "The Odd Couple" because again, we look very different from each other. But from the banner that was actually made for this show, I didn't know that that Black Man was going to do this. But it reminded me of the Miami Vice show, especially the movie. If you guys remember the 2006 Miami Vice movie that came out with Jamie Foxx and Colin Farrell. So that was the thing that had me going in my mind too. So I was like, man, I look pretty sharp in this picture over here. So it's just two friends, Peter and I, we've gotten a chance to know each other over time. And so I'm gonna, turn this over to him to talk about, his brainchild for the show and why, how we, brought this together and some of the things that we're going to be talking about over the course of this series. We're going to have a series of shows. So this is our pilot. And so we're going to see how this goes. Do a few shows, take some feedback, and see where we go from here. But again, he reached out to me on this, and I was certainly more than happy to oblige him and to join him on this journey. And we'll see where this conversation goes. But I'm very excited about where this is going. But again, thank you everyone who decided to again join us this evening for stopping by. As you can see at the bottom, scrolling, our cash apps are at the bottom. And so certainly, if you feel free, we would appreciate you supporting us in this show. Anything that you give us, we're more than happy to receive. But again, great to be here tonight. And thank you also for Black David, who's always been working behind the scenes on the BMU network. Thank you, sir, for everything that you put in, the sacrifices that you make to make us look our best. And for Black Man, for, again, just this platform that allows various creators to come together and to pull the content together. And at this point, I mean, you basically has like a weekly roster. We have the Talk That Talk Tuesday. We have the Sports Wednesday. We got the Hangout with JT, and then Shushu and Mandrell are going to be coming back soon. We got the Friday Night Barbershop. We have the show. We just had a show on Saturday night, and now we have this Sunday night spot opening up. So Black Man is just not about creating content. He's about creating a network, and he creates opportunities for people. So again, thank you so much, Black Man Unfiltered, for this opportunity and platform. And we're going to see where this is going to go. But with no further ado, I want to introduce my partner, my co-pilot tonight, who's going to be, sharing insights on this. So we have my brother, Grooming in Reviews, aka the Ghost of Sparta, aka Peter, aka Panayotis. Did I say that right?
Wow, you
Panayotis.
got that
I'm
on
get I'm
point,
getting
my
my
man.
Greek. And so here's my last drop for you, sir, before I turn it over to you. Galo apoyiba. So hopefully I said good evening in Greek. How am I doing? I'm trying, bro. But I'm gonna turn it over to you, sir,
BMU, if you're watching,
take it
call
from here.
911. My heart just stopped for a minute there. Thank you so much for the intro.
Salute, my brother.
So
Yes, sir.
I want to go over first where my idea came from. So about I'm saying almost a year ago, 6 months, something like that, I joined the family of BMU. So me and Paul ended up hooking up, getting information, talking back and forth. And I realized we're not that much difference. He's into martial arts. I'm into martial arts. I like working out when I lose my gut, and he likes working out. The only difference we have, I'm a little more blessed on the top than he is.
You're not blessed. First of all, before you go on, shout
Here
out
we
to the
go.
7B. Shout out to the 7B
God damn it.
network. Shout out to the Follicle Free for the beautiful, the bold, the beautiful, beneficent, benevolent Ball Brothers of the BMU network. Salute to you guys out there, but don't take that slight lightly. We are not a second-class citizen here. We are proud in our baldness and we walk proud and tall. No hate against the follicles, but hey, man, to each his own. But I salute my ball brothers out there. All right, go
So
ahead.
I will. So I have a lot of friends, and I learned my lesson the other day on my own show. I was 4 against 1, so we're not going there yet. But where my idea came from is I know plenty of people are Spanish, white, whatever race you are. But let me ask a better question. I cut myself and cut yourself. What comes out of our veins? Well, what do you think? What comes out?
And oh, red blood.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
If you're religious, you know that comes from God. So there was my idea, but I didn't have the research. So I went to my big, big, big brother who knows this is his cup of tea. So I went to BMU, threw the idea at Paul first. We had a little meeting, and the rest is history. And now here we are. The future has so much for us. You have an idea in your head? The only way you can come true is go for it. A roadblock is not where you stop, is where you begin.
Absolutely,
Yep.
absolutely. Just want to give some shout and love to the chat. So we have Alman DS78. Thank you for coming in tonight. Dr. Nakumbe, thank you so much, sir, for stopping in and seeing us here tonight. What We Know podcast, brother JT, always supporting us. Salute to you, sir. Thank you for the support tonight, for coming in and stopping by. And again, these guys, they're with us on the journey. We go to their shows, they come to ours, and we just appreciate the support that's within this network here. Even though everyone has their own chosen property, but we always try to salute each other. Blaze McCrory, again, thank you for joining us tonight and stopping by. Hopefully we can keep you guys your interest tonight. Crystal Light, appreciate you coming through also. Good to see you. Good to see you tonight. So we are, yes, sir. It's game heating up. So I don't know if I might be, I may look over and check a score here and there, but definitely my focus is going to be on the show tonight. But again, thank you for everyone who
So
decided to come
before we
through
move
this.
on, Paul, I want to put one
Yes,
big
sir.
ground rule down. Then I
Sure
think
thing.
me and you already spoke about this.
Yes, sir.
Is whatever happens, we talk about. We might disagree or to agree. Our biggest ground rule between me and you, I think, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is
Mhm.
respect is the biggest thing. Like if you don't like
Oh,
it, we don't have
100%.
to like let's go. Like, we're not going
Right.
there. And that's
Now
one thing I
this,
want to put
yeah,
out in the air right
yeah.
now.
Yeah, the purpose of this is about cultural dialogue and exchange from two people
Exactly.
who grew up in very different backgrounds. So we're not here to say, who had it better, who had it worse. My history is better than your history. My bike is bigger than your bike. That's not what this is about. This is about two guys coming from different backgrounds, looking to look for mutual understanding and mutual respect from our cultural past, and
Mhm.
learning from that, so that we can be better at dialogue. So much of our world today is about people not taking the time to have a conversation and to understand one another. And so we want to use this platform in this show for that exploration. So again, as we go back in our past, and today's show, we're going to be talking about school. What was school like for us? What's school like for someone in Greece? And what's it like for a Greek immigrant to come to the country? And the difference between the school systems here. What was my experience in school back in the day? I think amongst the things that Peter talked about, experience. We're both kind of geeky guys. We were nerds back in the day. So so again, despite our differences, we probably went through chewed a lot of the same crud. And so again, so we want to explore some of that from our from our expect
Me a geek?
our
No. Where you get that
oh
idea
no.
from?
It's all over it. It's all over the place, man. You can't hide it. And so yeah, so we're gonna so again, we're looking for that exchange, but this is not to say, to have a debate. And and at some point we do want to open up this show, maybe not the first show or two, but we definitely want
Mm,
to open it up. But we want to hear from people who come from a different cultural or ethnic experience. So if you're
I
from
agree.
Asia, if you're from Africa, if you're from yeah, from Italy, from wherever, where you have a different social dynamic, certainly we're very interested from hearing from those people also, to see again what your experiences was like, and again finding the gray area that again that unites us all as human beings as well. So we want to open up that dialogue and have that exchange also, that hopefully we can learn from one another and take the best of what each culture has to offer and try to plow a new way forward, so that we can live in harmony with one another. Again, so much tribalism that's going on right now,
And at the
and
same time, I
we want to be a
think
conduit. Yes, sir.
yeah, at the same time, I think we need to break some walls too in the process of this because we always say them, this, though, that, yellow, orange, right. Let's
Right.
break those walls. We don't all come from the same ground. Like I was saying, my grandma used to say to me is, we came from the ground, we're gonna return to the ground. End of the
That's
day, it
right.
doesn't matter what color you are. We're going to be in the ground together.
That's right.
So
Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely. So, all right. So, just wanted to again. So, I'll let you sort of kick this off. So, my friend here, Panagiotis. So, what does that? What does that even mean in Greek? If you just want to
Panayotis
Panagiotis.
actually,
So, if you
yeah,
want to give us a background, where you're from,
yeah,
first of all, and just a little bit about your story, your background,
yeah.
you can kick it off.
So I'm originally born with my name Panayotis. Panayotis names come from Panagia. Panagia is Holy Mary. My mother had several. I mean, by several miscarriages. I mean, like 8. She
Wow.
so she goes to God's mother, Virgin Mary says, if I have this child, I'm going to name him after you. So that's
Oh,
where my
wow.
name comes from, Panagia. So I was baptized by that name in the Greek Orthodox Church. So I was born here very little as an infant. So going into my second year, my parents go, "We're shipping you to Greece. We're moving back to Greece." Like, okay, I was too young to say no, right?
Right.
So I went to Greece, did 4 years. Those 4 years that I needed a father and a mother, I had a grandmother. So I was
Mhm,
raised in a very, very, very old school way. My
mhm,
grandma, I would say she's like a baby boomer, or maybe further
mhm,
back that too.
mhm.
So
Greatest generation.
yeah.
Mhm.
So I was raised a very old school. Like she was telling me, like, oh, if you don't have money for the bus, jump behind the bus. I'm like, where behind
What?
the bus? Back in the day, you
Well,
could
you,
do
like,
that.
hitch a ride on the back and hide so they don't see you, cat
Yeah,
wow.
remember they didn't want to keep the money. Like you said, your uncles used to do that, so they didn't spend the money, and they want to save it for candy or something. You could do the same thing. Like, where? There's no bumper. Sit back there.
Wow, wow.
So stuff like that. She should tell me it was a great experience, right? Being raised from somebody older and wiser. And the school was a night and day at first. I struggled the first year. I really did because
So
I
what year
remember.
so let's go back. So
Mhm.
what year did you, start school? Or when does school typically start in Greece? I know here in the US, you have, kindergarten usually starts at age 5, around age 5, and
Yep, the
then,
same thing.
1st grade around, age 6. That's your similar experience as well?
Yep, same. The same age groups are same thing there.
Mhm.
So originally I was supposed to go into the third grade, but they pushed me back because I didn't know any Greek. So it would be too advanced for
Ah,
me.
okay.
So and I didn't go to my regular school around my corner. I had to go to a special ESL school that was an hour
Wow.
away from my house. So a
So you
bus.
had to take because ESL is popular here, especially with a lot of Latinos. They come
Mhm.
here to the States or whatever.
Yep.
You typically put in ESL classes, but in Greece, you had to go to an ESL class because you didn't understand. You didn't know
Yes,
Greek that
but it
well. Wow.
wasn't ESL class, it was ESL school.
Okay.
So 2
Oh,
different
it's
schools.
okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
Okay.
let's talk about the buses for a minute. There is not like a regular yellow bus that we're used to here. It's actually a one of those buses that you see football players in, like
Yeah, like
uh
a tour bus.
thank you, tour bus.
Yeah.
That's what we were traveling in back and forth.
Okay.
I'm going like, okay, I thought that was a normal back then. Excuse me. So at first, I was like, I met all different shapes and sizes. I met people from Africa. I met from India. I met people from China. I met people from you name it, any part of the country. I probably met them in that school because we're all over different people. And when I was talking to people, like they look at me like, I thought Greeks are only white. I'm like, no, you're completely wrong. A minority is white. Not deny it, but they're not. There's all over. I have met some of the greatest people over there and some great people over here. Like I have a lady in my church. She's black. I have nothing against that. To me, it's just a color.
Right. Right.
But back to the school is completely different. So when we change classes, the teachers have it easy here because we go to them, not in Greece. They come to us. We don't
Mhm.
have lockers. We don't have so we get 2 breaks. I'm sorry, 3 breaks we get because
Mhm.
the day is long. You get a 15 minutes in the morning to get a snack, whatever. No cafeteria, by the way. The cafeteria is the backyard. It has a
Okay.
little shack. That's what it is. And wherever it is, you get a little money from your mom or dad, and you pay for that. And that's it.
Right.
And if it's raining, you're under a little ledge. You still have to go outside, no matter
Mhm.
rain or snow. Simple. You have to go outside.
Mhm.
So after that, you go your lunch. That's more like a 30-minute. You eat and go play. That's what it was.
Right.
And if it rains, you're under the sled. It doesn't matter if it's 5 degrees, you start going outside no matter how cold it is.
Wow.
I remember it was -10. And my teacher goes, "Go out." The
So
second
from what
difference.
you're
Go ahead.
describing, so Greek climate is mostly it's kind of like temperament zones. You have hot summers and cold winters, or it's so it's not like a consistent. Because I always thought like of the Mediterranean, like it
Mm,
always had like a steady kind of temperature or whatever. It's almost like the tropics,
no,
but
it's more like
it,
I would say more like here. So it fluctuates with the seasons.
mhm,
But what is weird about in Greece is also it changes by the morning is more colder, the afternoon is more hotter, and the night is colder again. It goes by the hour too. But now
mhm,
in the summer, it is that is even worse. So in the summer, it is hot in the morning, hot in the afternoon, and hot and colder in the winter in the night. Excuse me. But it gets so hot, you would literally have to take a break from whatever you're doing and
mhm,
go take a nap. That's
right.
how bad it is.
Mhm,
And that's one of the culture differences. For example, like if people go home, take a nap, and go back to work. Depends on your line of work, of course.
right.
It was that. But back to the school thing, the other thing I thought was really strange back then, the teachers, a lot of them hit us. And like I
Okay.
remember
So
getting slapped so many times.
corporal punishment, right?
Oh yeah,
That
the
does
metal ruler and me are very friendly to each other. And like I got hit across the face with that metal ruler so many
across
times.
the wait a minute, across the face?
Yeah, I got
Yeah, so
slapped. Yeah, some people will argue that's kind of excessive. It could be a little excessive.
yeah. 'Cause I
But
remember corporal punishment. I mean, we had it back in certainly in elementary school back in the day where they would come with the
mm,
you had this one guy, Mr. Foster. This is like between like fourth and seventh grade. He
mhm.
would just take his belt off and he would just start wailing on you like right away. So there was no rules and anything like that. But again, the parents wanted it. That was the thing about it also. I mean, for most of the parents there, they had no problem with if your kid was acting up, he would whip that belt out and he would get on you. So this is like the late 70s into the early 80s. But I've never heard anybody getting hit across the face though. That's pretty well.
Oh yeah, I remember like if she didn't have a ruler, it was the backhand, front hand or the backhand.
In
Depends
the
where she's
face?
in. Oh
Oh
yeah,
my
I got
god.
slapped across the
Wow.
face so many times. I
Wow.
remember even the bus drivers were able to do it. Like I remember one time the bus driver was like getting enough. He didn't have anything to really hit us with, so he pulled over the bus a little bit, reached out, he got a switch. And I'm like,
Wait a
oh
minute.
boy,
What's going on? Wait a minute. You're on the bus, and
yeah,
again, this is like a tour bus. So what's going on this tour bus that kids act so around? He'll actually pull over
yeah,
and he'll take a whip and wow.
yeah.
Okay.
Because kids being kids, you know
Very
how
old
kids
school
started.
then.
We were being stupid, jumping around online. And he told us to calm down. But in his defense, he had no teacher supervising us. He's a bus driver. That's all he is. This is not
Right.
the from the school. There's a company that school pays to get us from point A to point B. So yeah,
Wow.
he had to do something about it.
Right. Right.
So I went through that, like I remember seeing it. It's such a difference.
Mhm.
Like going outside, so that then my mom saw, okay, he needs a little more help because the language is different. So she
Mhm.
actually invested getting me into a private school. They actually had real yellow buses there. So, and that's because you're paying private school. Again, same concept. You go outside
So
in the
your
winter.
so so your private schools use like the traditional yellow buses where over here
Yes.
like our public schools use the yellow buses. Okay. Okay.
Yes. So
Wow.
when you say private school here, you're thinking high end, like laptops, computers, DVD players,
Mhm.
VCRs, whatever
Right.
at that time you live. That's completely opposite in Greece. In Greece is you just get more attention. That's all. That's all you get. A little extra help, and that's it. But
In the private schools. Right.
yeah. So you get the same thing. The the bathrooms are same. It's completely. I'll get to the bathroom part. It's the funny part in a minute.
Mhm. Right.
So they were exactly the same. You have to invest for your own books. You have to go to they give you a list, a big paper like this big, saying you
Mhm.
need these books. You go to the bookstore and pay for them out of your own pocket. I remember my grandma's dropping about 200 drachmas. Today that'll be about close to $300 just in books, study books, history
So
books.
at an early age,
Mhm.
this is you're still talking grammar school or
Yeah.
elementary school, and there's no like Department of Education that's funding a lot of these schools. Everyone
No.
has to buy their own course
Correct.
materials, even from the youngest of ages.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
So here's the catch 22, and I think it's sneaky, good for business, but bad for people like myself who is a blue collar family. It says,
Sure.
so let's say you had the book from last year. Your son was in 6th grade, and I'm going to 6th. He's going to 7th. He doesn't need the same book. You go, hey, Panayotis, take my OSA. Not happening. Because from year to year, they changed everything in it.
Oh, that's the same here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially the colleges are like the
Oh, I know.
worst, for that. You know,
There's
you
a
would buy,
few.
yeah, but you
There are
would buy a
few.
book for
Go ahead.
$100. By the end of the semester, it was not even worth $10 at that.
Yeah. But there are a few cases that you're able to, like history book. What's the difference between history from today and next year from 1871 when R. Payne was born? No offense, R. Payne, but you get my point. You know what I'm saying? But
New
it's,
discoveries.
yeah, but we're talking about like Alexander the Great. What's the difference about Alexander the Great from 2023 versus 2024? We're still at the same thing, so it's not that much difference. So that's where I think, yeah. So my grandma used to drop like $300 to $400. The documents are gonna be like $300 to $400 here, and that's only the books. We're talking about now. We have to get pencils. You have to get a book back. You have to get a binder. Now you have to get this. Have to get that.
Right.
You're dropping a good $1,000 easily before you even step foot in the first day of school.
And that's per child.
Yeah, like I was one of the few people that my mom felt it was cheaper to get me a book back from here and ship it to Greece, and it was actually back then.
Right.
And it was back then they were bigger here versus there because of the different education was back then.
Right.
So, and it was okay first fine. Like I remember the first couple of days, it was like I struggled so much. Like history is like when I struggle, and now I love it.
Right.
Like you have to memorize the course by heart. To tell you, a teacher comes up to you and first thing in the morning, tell me chapter 3, and you have to say word by word by word by word in the morning.
Right.
Why?
Was there's like standardized tests, or
Yes.
this was just kind of off the okay?
This
Now,
is
who sets the test? Does the school set it? Does the state or the government? Okay,
Government.
so the government has a standardized test that has to be passed down to everybody. Okay.
Yes, it doesn't matter if you're private or not. So one of the standardized is you need to know your Greek history. There's no if or buts about it. That's what it is. So as being a Greek, you need like Alexander Great, I don't know how he became king, for example. Like you need to know that by heart. Like I couldn't memorize all that. That was too much. And everybody, and you had to memorize 2 different chapters. So you had to memorize, let's say, Alexander Great was one, and you were learning something else. Another one, you have to memorize both of them. Like plus, you have to know your math, plus your spelling, your reading, all that stuff. I'm like, how? And even at that age, I was struggling so much. Every kid that I knew in my class was struggling. A student was really hard to find in my class. We had one A student, not plus A student, just A student, barely. The highest.
Right now, mind you, this is at the ESL school, or not the general.
Both.
Okay.
Both. So just in the, let's say the private school for argument's sakes, and the one I was next to the smartest kid in class, and he struggled, and he barely got an A. I mean, by one number. Everybody was in the B's usually, like a low B's, I would say. I was in a C, and they thought I was stupid. Actually, you thought you were retarded. They looked at me and says, "You're fucking retarded." Exact words in Greek.
And that's the and we don't use those words anymore. Obviously, you know.
So technically, they call me a malaka. Yeah, they call me a malaka. So for you guys who don't know, malaka means, I'm going to teach you a great word today. Malaka means jerk off. In Greek, it's a slang. So if you're stupid, they call you malaka. You call your friend a malaka. Like if me and Paul were just talking outside, it was like, "Hey, yo, what's up, malaka?" And it goes so many different ways.
So it's kind of like the N word here, but not
exactly
in the proper context, like between
exactly
black people or whatever. So it's
exactly.
Okay.
So when a teacher looks at you, goes, "You're a fucking malaka," that crushes you as a kid. Like I went home so many times in tears.
Wait a minute. The teacher will tell you that?
Yeah, right in your face. Like the way I'm looking at you, if I were you in person, and go to you're a fucking malaka, and literally poke you in the chest. I'm like, what? I'm like, I didn't know anything better. So a little sneak peek at future. I told my mom that years later when I was older, in my teenage years. She goes, "They did what? Why didn't you change anything?" I'm like, that was normal. Like, no, it's not normal. He goes, and I find out it is normal. Everybody went to her. You don't like it because your son. but you
Right,
couldn't
right.
done anything because A, you're in America, and B, that is the law in Greece back then. We're talking about mid 90s, 95, 96, 98, around that we're talking about.
Okay, so we're not talking ancient times. I mean, I go
No.
back to the 70s and 80s, so I'm a bit older than you, but even through the 90s, that kind of language and that kind of, stern was used amongst school-age children back then.
So to answer the doctor and question, no, from year to year is exactly the same. College now every year is getting worse. For from high school and down, same thing year after year after year.
Right, but I think he's talking about what he talking about, like the books. You said every year they came out with a new edition of the book, right? So you
Yes, yes,
so whatever, so right, so whatever you had. So he was asking after every term or every year. So I think that was his question. So it's like once a year a new book comes out, or once a
yes, once a year.
and how do you transfer? You have like 4 quarters or two, or how do you split up
Two
your
quarters.
school year?
So you get a report right after you go on Christmas break, and so
Mhm.
you know where you're at, and you get the same teacher from beginning to end for one full year.
Right.
So you don't change them. You meet your teacher when you first walk in, like Mrs. Sophia, for example, and Miss Sophia is your teacher from the first day and the last day. And that's it.
Yeah, that's typically they did that here until pretty much until middle school. Like me, elementary school, yeah, you
Yep.
have the same teacher from from start to finish. But then once you start going into middle school, they put you into individual class. So you have a math class, you have an English class, you
Mhm.
have a whatever the class that's that's there. But yeah,
To me, it
definitely
was weird. That was weird for me when I first came here.
right.
So when I went to sixth grade here, and it says you got a locker, like what's a locker? And see that metal thing that go to me, and like that's yours. What do I put in your books and your jacket? Like why? Because you're going to be going to class. Like me? I'm like the teacher then comes to us. He goes, "No, where you come from, Greece?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, yeah, we got a lot of teacher kid." I'm like, "No, no shit." I'm like, how do I find this place? It's amazing. It's big." To me, I was little. I didn't know. And like the schools were like, go straight and come back. To me, it was looked like a maze. When you first work somewhere.
Okay, before you go on there,
Yeah,
so
yeah, yeah.
first of all, shout out to some of the people who joined us in the chat. So debonair, again, thank you for coming through tonight. Information man, I am honored, sir, that you would stop through and see us tonight. Good seeing you. The RBN, thank you so much for coming in through here tonight as well. Again, anyone who's stopping through, we want to acknowledge you guys and see what's here. Is a comment from Blaze. Actually, I'm not surprised. It may not be the case nowadays, but back in the 90s, you had teachers who would outright call you child stupid or slow. Yeah, I mean, back in my
True.
day, like I said, I go back to the 70s with elementary school, and yeah, teachers were up to just tell you were no good. I mean, so and a lot of that language is out today, but it seems like from what I understand, through the 90s, where Peter went to school, that was still the case. But you're saying even through the 90s here, it was the same thing there. So again, so we're seeing a lot of the commonalities in terms of how teachers were able to interact with students. Now there's so many things that are just PC now that you can't say to a student. And again, depending on who you are, that could have a devastating effect on you in terms of your self-image and whatnot. So, but then you always get that clap back that says, "Oh, well, that's why everyone's soft today because you can't talk to kids the way the way you used to." So, what's your take on that? I mean, just before we get ahead of ourselves, and I have another question to ask you before you
Hmm.
transition to your time in America. I still want to visit your time back in Greece,
Yeah, yeah.
but just for that comment, what do you think about the old school way where you would just tell a kid straight up versus today's climate now, where it's like if you know what you say can get you called into the principal's office and disciplined for so what do you land there in terms of the
So
old school versus the new?
I'm in the middle of this. I think calling kids stupid, malaka, or whatever word is not appropriate. But to talk to them like a little bit on their level, like, listen, you're not doing good. You got to get your head in the books and study. Yes, but you have to find the middle ground with that. But don't baby them either. Like saying like, listen, come on, buddy, you can do better. No, no. I'm like, listen, get your head in the books, or you're gonna fail, or you're just gonna be left back. And you want you sometimes I'm not a teacher to say that.
Mhm.
When I was teaching martial arts, I could have said what I wanted. I never called any of my students stupid. I did say sometimes, if you don't shape up and you're wasting my time, I could be teaching somebody else instead.
Right.
That was snapped right into them.
Mhm.
Something like those terms. Yeah, I'm okay with that. But
Right.
I don't
Right.
believe in babying anybody because the real world out there is not that easy. We all know this
Right.
as men now.
Right. 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 All right. So I want to a couple questions I have from your
Go
background. So
for it.
you said now that the ESL school that you went to, you saw a lot of diversity. Now, where was this, or where did you grow when you went back to Greece? Where did you grow up? What major city, or was it a town, or
So I lived where it's called Peristeri. Peristeri is the outskirts of Athens. It's like New York and Long Island, for example, to get a better idea.
right? Right. So from what you're saying, Athens, like New York City, is a very diverse
Oh God, yeah.
place. Like you
Yes.
have ethnicities like all from all over the
Yep.
world who live in that area. So again, when you go to a school, like you said, your ESL school, you're gonna have that different ethnic diversity that's there. Now, was that ever a problem? Being in a school, did you see like tribalism in that school, or the Greeks hang out with each other, or the Africans, or whoever that was? Just your early impression of, I guess, ethnic, if not race. I don't like to use the word race, but um, ethnic relations in a diverse city like Athens at that time when you were going to school. What was that like from your recollection?
So at the ESCL school, no, because we all were like kids. We were playing. The only time we
Right.
were like separate, like the boys were talking about Power Rangers and the girls were talking about Barbies over there. That's the only big difference. Now
So
in the
everybody was
private,
everybody.
yeah, at the
Yeah.
private school, I felt I was not fit in. I only had one or two friends there, so they all were hanging out with themselves, and I was with the other two guys just hanging out because we had things in common. We're talking about, space, stuff like geeky stuff, and the other ones were more about
Okay.
like about sports. And I was really
Okay, so it
into it
wasn't
back
so
then.
much an ethnic beef, it was more so just about interest. So again, the nerds versus
Exactly,
the jocks, sort of
pretty
thing.
much,
Okay,
yeah.
okay. All right, so you're in Greece,
Hmm.
you're in this ESL because you don't know Greek very well at this point,
Correct.
whether it be spoken or written. Now you've been there for a number of years. Now you come to the United States, I believe you said for 6th grade. When
Before we get into that, I want to mention
Sure,
one major part before I forget this part.
sure.
So we take a grade in our after school activities here because we have them. In Greece, there's no such thing as after school activities like football, soccer. Soccer is the major sport. If you want to
Yeah.
play soccer, you have to pay a camp monthly or yearly. Swimming, same thing. Whatever sport you want to do, you got to drop the dollars.
Within the school, let's say the school budget,
Mhm.
because we already said already there's nothing in the school budget for books,
Correct.
not even through your taxes. Like, because like here we
Correct.
pay, in the United States, especially if you own a home, your property taxes, the number one thing in your property taxes that you pay for is for the school system. That's the biggest chunk that comes out. And within that, that's supposed to pay for a lot of those things, like the book, at least at minimum the books. But
Mhm.
nowadays, yeah, you have to buy your own computer, you have to buy your pens and pencils and things of that nature.
Mhm.
But in Greece, there's no budget for textbooks, and you're also saying there's nothing in the school budget for extracurricular sports, club events or whatever. What about like Glee Club
Nothing. We
or
did not even have a nurse
pool
on
play?
staff.
You didn't have a nurse?
No nurse. So I remember busting my hand open by accident. I was playing around. I fell. I scratched my hand a little bit, and I busted my knuckles a little bit. Nothing crazy. So my teacher literally had to bandage me up. No gloves, no nothing either.
Right. Wow. So again, Dr. Nkume is asking, so is this at all levels? I know we were talking about
Yes, that's
elementary, but
correct.
even through high school,
That's
college,
correct.
so everything is private. Everything is privatized there
Pretty
rather
much.
than the
Yeah.
school. I mean, that could say like, because here, there's a lot of debate over whether or not, and especially you see from, I'm not trying to get overly political here, but do we need a Department of Education? Because there's like hundreds of billions of dollars that are going into that entity, and people are debating, are we getting the value out of it? But certainly there's things in there that a lot of times we take for granted that we're supposed to have. But here, we're getting an example here from another country where a lot of those things are considered, luxuries that you have to pay for privately as a citizen. So, so that's certainly a major a distinction and would
Mhm.
certainly factor into, again, sometimes here, in the States, we do take for granted some of the things that we have, but there's also a discussion on whether or not how much of that should be granted to us. And nowadays, it's like parents are paying for a lot of that stuff anyway. Like if you wanted to play sports here, like on a serious level, it's almost impossible to just do it just through the schools. If you really want to get good, you're going to pay for some private club, some travel team, or something like that. That's going to be, and it's like it's almost all year round. So again, that privatization is already happening one way in that people, in hopes that their kids can get better exposure to better competition and whatnot, that they're going out outside of the school systems to offer those. So that's also another question. Do we need to be offering these things, or should we allow parents to pay them? I think just based on the economics, that would certainly disenfranchise a lot of parents if they had to pay out of pocket for you're already paying for the books, and you have to pay for your kid to play a sport. I mean, especially some of
Yeah.
these sports like baseball or whatnot. That's why I think, especially for a lot of black kids, sports like basketball and whatnot, those are sports that they gravitate towards, because you don't need a lot of equipment or whatnot. But I know a friend of mine, his son plays travel baseball. He'll spend $300 for a bat. I mean, it's just,
It's ridiculous with that prices. So that's where this is my next point of that sports thing I want to get into really fast before we
Mhm,
move on to
yeah,
more. So
go ahead.
when you're learning in a private camp, these are usually major sport teams like Olympiacos. They're one of the biggest teams in there. You're learned by professionals, sport professionals, the team players. And the
Yeah,
off season, they have to teach the kids. It's part of the contract as a professional. And so,
really?
yeah, and if there's
For
no, and here's the catcher, and this one people might argue in the chats, and people might like it. The scholarship is no such thing as scholarship in Greece. At the time when I went to school, let's clear that out. Back now,
Mhm,
it's could be completely different. I'm not too familiar with what the scholarship situation is, but if you went to Greece in this Greek school, there's no
mhm,
scholarships at the time. I looked out
right.
here. What's a scholarship? Oh, they pay you to go to school. You didn't have that back there. Like I have no idea what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
And I know sports is big, like you said, you talk about the soccer, but Greek basketball, even in the NBA, there've been
yeah.
so many great Greek players that have played, but at the same time, like over there, guys are turning professional like at 14 years old. Like you got guys who are in high school playing literally professional basketball in Greece. You know what I mean? And it's no wonder, like when these guys come here, there's like they're so used to playing with adults. Whereas here, like, you can't just go. You used to be able to go pro out of high school, and then they took that away and said, well, look, you need the developmental league. So they created the G League for players to go there and play and whatnot. So definitely there seems to be a different in standard in terms of when you're able to participate, but also get exposure to these athletes. But you're saying that for these top athletes, you can literally, it's in your contract where you have to work with. Now, how do they work with kids? They work with certain clubs, or they work with how do these athletes get in contact with these different groups where these kids are playing?
So the coach who coaches the team also coaches the kids who teaches them. So he brings them in, like, breaks them in little groups. Okay, you're gonna work with this player, and they're not always there. They rotate them, give them a little break. Like say, let's say that you have 20 players. It's going to be like maybe 4 out of 5 that day, or it depends how big the group is. So say out of 25, the 15th are going to be off. So
Right,
you guys go in, and so on. It goes back and forth for that. So it depends on the camp. It depends on the coach. It depends on the owner of the team too.
right.
That's a really hard look match. But one thing I do want to mention, I don't know, I guess remember this. Olympiacos actually played against the Chicago Bulls back in the day with Michael Jordan, and
Mhm.
obviously Chicago Bulls won, but they were a lot better. But
Right.
I think it was a little funny. Throw that in there.
Right, right, right. Yeah, I know Greece is certainly known for their basketball, especially in Olympic time. A lot of those
Yeah,
guys play.
soccer. They're really known for their soccer too.
Right, right, right. All right, so I want to get back to,
Let's get back on topic.
because with yours, so it's like you've gone through a lot of transitions. So again, you come
Right.
to Greece as a young child, not
Right.
necessarily knowing the language very well, or and whatnot. So you have to go to an ESL, and then from an
hmm
ESL, then you can go to private. Okay, so
Right.
again, feeling that sense of being somewhat, and you're already kind of, I wouldn't call you an outcast, but again, you're like
A little
myself,
love.
you're a nerd. So you're in that category. Now you leave Greece at what age do you leave?
I think I was around 15. I'm not mistaken.
Okay, so 15. So you're a teenager. So you're
Correct.
in Greece now, even
Hmm.
though you're not necessarily looked at let's say favorably in the culture. But obviously you speak Greek fluently, your language
I
and
put
everything's yeah. So now you have another transition
Hmm.
where now you move to the United States and your family's been here, your mom and dad, they've been here at the time, I guess, establishing roots here. They
Correct.
come, I guess they send for you to go back. Now it's just you. Did you have a sibling, brother,
I'm the only
or
child.
you're
So
the only child? So
yeah,
you
like I
can't.
said originally, my original statement, we were supposed to move back there. We never did because
Right.
my mom got hurt. My dad's work or something like that. So they says, you know what, you're coming back.
Mhm.
So the only
And
thing I want to mention
what
also,
did your parents do for work here?
my father was a cab driver and my mother was working in factories, and that's how she got hurt in the factory.
Mm,
My father was been a cab driver since I can remember. Before
okay.
that, he worked in the crab fishing boats. So that's how he came to the country. But one thing I do want to mention to everybody to understand, when I was going back and forth to transition, I had literally only 3 or 4 friends because you could not make friends that easily, because you transition from culture to culture so fast.
Right. 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 So now you come in to the United States at 15. With that, those issues, trying to hopefully
Mhm.
get a foothold where you're at. Now, were you excited about the opportunity to come to America, be reunited with your family at least on the onset? Was that were you disappointed? It's like, no, we want to stay in Greece. I'm finally getting foothold here, or were you,
Because I was
enthused
so
about the
young,
opportunity?
I didn't process that immediately. I
Well, you're
processed
15. You're coming of age though. You're
Yeah,
about 15,
yeah,
so
because I thought they were like, my parents were known for pranksters, so I didn't really, like, whatever, they're messing with me. They were really known
Mhm.
for that stuff.
Right. Okay.
So when I processed it there, it was towards the end of summer, and like, we gotta get you books. I'm like, oh, this is really happening. So, okay, let's do it. And it was like
Okay.
I was so used to it at the time, like it didn't phase me. It was like I was numb to it because I went from America to Greece and now back. I'm like, oh, it's whatever. I'm
Yeah,
numb
so
to it,
you're almost like an army brat to an extent.
pretty much.
Those guys got to move from base to base or whatever. So,
Correct.
so you're coming to America now. How was your English at this point? Was
So
it
from I was told I had a from the girls because that's who I cared to talk to mostly back then. It was
okay?
I had a very sexy European accent that they barely can understand. I spoke fluent English because English is one of the language you have to learn in Greece, it's a second language.
That's
So
that's good
that's
to know.
one
That's
class
good
I
to know.
actually did pretty well, actually.
Right now, what now?
So
What now?
yeah.
Now, why is that? That English has is it simply just from commercial business reasons, or was there an interest in? So, is Greece in general bilingual as a country?
So I believe it's more a business part of it, and it's actually everywhere in Europe. You need to know English. It's a second language. Like how here is Spanish, there is
Mhm.
English. So I think it's an education thing. The
Right.
small education board we do have, very small at the time, it's
Right.
one of the things they did, and I actually agree with it. You should know English because if you're working with a company like say IT like yourself, and you're dealing with somebody in Greece, you need to find a way to communicate. So
Right.
language,
Right.
Greek, English is I believe a world language now, it has become.
Oh, totally, totally. And when I was in certainly through, I would say, middle school. By the time I got to high school, I already started to see things change. But when you talk about middle school, seventh, eighth, and ninth grade, there was a plethora of languages that you could take in those schools. I mean, German was offered, Italian was offered,
Mhm.
Greek was offered, Latin was offered. Right. So again, there were just so many different languages you can go to, but all those programs just got slashed to the point where most schools they're gonna have Spanish as a second language. My kids, they went to a charter school that was done actually by the I think by the Armenians. There's for some reason there's like a large there's an educational movement by a lot of these folks who come from no, I'm sorry, not Armenia, Turkey. I'm sorry, Turkey. There's a
Okay, Turkey.
large contingent of educators from Turkey that have set up these private charter schools. And so in my kids' class school, they offered you Spanish, but they also offered you Turkish and they also offer you Chinese. But that was it. I mean, most high schools today, it's very difficult to learn. I mean, French, like Dr. Nkume mentioned French here. French is seem like to be cut down. People just aren't offering it
I'm gonna tell you a little
like they used to.
story.
So to your point about just the globalization of English had actually becoming dominant, and fewer languages are being offered in the school setting.
So when they were voting for which language to be the second language in the United States, and a lot of people don't know this, it came down to Greek and Spanish. We lost about 1 point to vote.
Is that
So
right?
yeah, so if that vote were, let's say, with the other way around, it was one, you might be speaking fluent Greek right now.
I did not know that. Around
Yeah.
what? Do you know around what time that was?
I
Had to
don't,
be
to
a
be
long
honest
time
with
ago.
you. It was a very
Yeah.
long time. I think before they
Right.
actually started cutting, because you had all these different languages coming into school, like you said. So now they cut it down to they want one or two. I know when I went to school, it was only French or and Greek, Spanish. But because I already knew a second language by fluently, you don't need to. We just give you the credit. I'm like, really? You can do that here? He goes, yeah. Well, why not? And you're like,
Yeah.
you can prove it, right? Like, I started speaking like, pero acá, no compramos what tú feliz. I'm like, they're looking like, you passed already. I'm like, I wish
Wow.
everything was so fucking easy back then. I
It's
was
so
laughing
easy,
at them.
right? Absolutely, because especially with yours, because not only do you have to learn the
Mhm.
language, you also have to learn the script also, right?
Oh, that's even worse.
The
Don't you get me
characters,
started
yeah,
that.
yeah, the
Like,
characters are different.
I give you the
Yeah.
S's, for example. There are three different S's. They're both S's, but it depends if it's a beginning or end, a paragraph, or a Mrs. or a Mrs. Is the rules of spelling or writing, grammar, in other words, makes no goddamn sense sometimes. I'm like they have like three eyes. I'm like, why do we have three eyes? Like, that's how it always been. Like, it's not like in the other language you learn, like American, like,
Wow.
no.
Okay. Yeah. So you have that barrier
Oh
as
yeah.
well. One point I just came to mind. I didn't want to lose the point. What is your school year like here? It's September to June, and it's been that way for a while. In part because again, since we were mostly like an agricultural
Mhm.
society, so you wanted those summer months for kids to be able to work, like especially on the farms and whatnot. So most of that work was done like in the summer months, and then you had your fall. So, what about in Greece? What is the school year? Is it longer than ours or shorter or what's it
It's about the same. The
about the
only
same?
difference is the holidays. So we don't have the holidays like Thanksgiving, obviously, is American holiday, and Black Friday.
Mhm.
Those are so. But when it comes to Christmas, and New Year's, because we're very big in our religion there. But people who don't know, Greek is 99.9% of Christian Orthodox. Excuse me. So when it comes to Christmas, you're definitely getting the whole month off. You have one whole month, two
You
weeks
get
in
the month
December.
off.
Oh yeah, you got a whole month off.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. So you get like towards the a week before Christmas, you start getting off. And, like, it comes out to be like a week and a half or 2 weeks almost right before Christmas, and you go back a little week after the New Year's. So
Mhm.
right about now, you'll be going back to school.
Right. Okay. Okay. Wow. So
And
so
I'm sorry,
mm,
the other one that you also
mhm.
get off for another week is Easter. Easter is such an important holiday in Greece.
Yeah,
It's not
yeah,
even
that's big.
funny.
Yeah,
Yeah.
those are big ones. Right, right. But you're not getting this as like Greek Independence Day. Is there like because again, I know in tomorrow, it's Martin Luther King's birthday. I mean, I don't know, America might rule in terms of just holidays. We just pick a holiday and we just name it after after everyone here.
Yeah,
But
like, we can make a new holiday, starting grooming reviews and a Paul Day, whatever. But back then, they had a few days like here and there. But if it fell on a weekend, fine. Like, it's like Caferi Deftera is a clean Monday. That's the holiday that bakers take a day off, and they make, except, nice fluffy bread. They have like the flatbreads instead.
Mhm, right.
That's not, they consider that a holiday, but you're not really getting off. You still go to school.
Yeah.
In the government buildings, I was too young to remember that part, to be honest with you.
Right, right, right. But just want to shout out to get a couple more people who came through the chat. Alex P. Keaton, certainly thanks for stopping by tonight and seeing us. Certainly you talked about, and certainly in a lot of those countries they have for the youth, they have those youth groups and the feeder
Mhm.
clubs for soccer and sports and whatnot. So, definitely, those, but it's not integrated into the school systems. Again, these are private clubs that people pay into. And I know Blaze, he had a comment about, to my earlier point, yeah, when he was in school, Spanish was the only thing that's being offered. And it makes sense here because I mean, obviously, we're bordered with this, Spanish nation. We're bordered with Mexico, so it makes sense to do it there, or Canada. Even though French is the official language up there, most people, except for if you're from Quebec, most people speak English. So So I can understand why, Greek might not have been chosen simply because, we didn't have like a direct where we were, interacting with folks like that. But I really want to drill in on your transition because you've gone through multiple transitions. So now
Yes.
it is you come to the United States at 15, um, knowing Greek. Your English, well, you were fluent, but you had the accent and everything.
Hmm.
But again, it's a new world for you. All right.
Correct.
So you're coming in. So you're having the immigrant experience a second time.
And the worst one.
Coming to and the worst one. Okay, so
Yeah.
talk about that as far as that experience. So you're coming at 15, so you're starting what in 10th grade, 11th grade, yeah,
Six. I was in sixth grade at the time.
at 15 years old.
Yeah, I might be wrong on the number. I can't remember exactly, to be honest with you guys. So
Okay,
I was going in sixth grade. That I do remember. I'm not. So
okay, because typically here you'd be about 12. I'd say about 12 years old if you were going
yeah, I was.
into.
Don't forget, I was left back twice. So the
Okay,
teacher
so
got
you had that. Okay, so
yeah,
add that on top of that. Okay,
yeah,
so you're older than most of the sixth graders,
correct,
and you're an immigrant.
correct,
That's coming through, and you have the accent and everything else. So
correct.
talk now. Where did you guys settle when you came here? You were
It
East
was
Coast,
Long Island, Brentwood, actually.
Brentwood, Long
Yeah,
Island.
the
Okay,
neighborhood
so
was
that
very good at the time. I had a lot
mhm,
of people from different countries, but what made a difference is the way I dressed. I didn't dress in the baggy pants like everybody did back then, or the
mhm.
cool t-shirts and the name. I bought like regular clothes, like from Target, for example, or cheap shit because you can go through. You're a kid, you're gonna rip it, whatever.
Yeah, it's definitely a style month. So you didn't, and obviously you didn't go to like a Catholic school or some
No,
school where they had dress
public.
codes or
Yep,
uniforms or anything like that. So
yep.
okay, so you dropped into this experience.
Hmm.
And so, what are some of the things that you're starting to notice the distinctions in the school? So, we'll talk about just your experience, interacting with the students there, but just the schooling systems. What are some of the things that you noticed off the bat in terms of the difference between the Greek school system and the U.S.?
The kids are they have balls here. They would tell the teacher, "Go fuck himself so fast." I'm like, "You- "Where's a ruler?" I'm like hiding him under the chair, like the ruler's coming out. Like,
Mm.
and the teacher couldn't say anything. Pick up the wall phone, like, "Can I get a principal down here, please?" I'm like, "That's it." I would have lost a couple of teeth if I tell the teacher, "Go shut up." I'm like, I was shocked when I heard that. And like when I had to go change classes, like I had to go change classes. But they come to us, then they get paid for it. Like, no, we don't. Nothing against our union. What's a union? And like stuff like that. The worst one was the clothes, like I said, because first thing they saw me, I remember the first comment that one kid looked at me like, "What are you, a fucking faggot?" I'm like, "Excuse me?" I'm like, because my pants were, regular fit pants. I didn't wear baggy
Right,
pants. I
right.
didn't do anything like that. But to them, that is being gay. I wasn't gay. I was very straight, but they didn't care. They the one kid literally put my head through a desk because I dressed differently. My third day there.
Okay. Third day there. Okay,
Yeah.
so the book, right? So the book, so before, like I said, before we get so much deeply into the
Mhm.
personal treatment, like I said, I just want to make some of these distinctions again in school. So we already talked about in the Greek system the privatization in terms of you responsible for your own books and learning your
Correct.
materials. The lack of extracurricular activities, no sports, no
Correct.
private clubs or whatnot. You had to do
Mhm.
all that on your own. Now, what we're also learning is also from Greece, there's no teachers unions. So you come
Bingo.
in here and you have this going on. And in terms of discipline, obviously there's a definite difference in discipline in that teachers were empowered to deal with kids directly, whereas here you notice that okay, if there was a problem kid, you just picked up the phone and made a phone call,
Pretty much.
and somebody came down and came. So those are huge differences in how these two nations and cultures. And again, for those who if you're with us tonight, if you're from another cultural background that's different in terms of the schooling, if this is making sense to you, whether from the American perspective or from the Greek perspective, um, of how your formative education was in your country. If you happen to be a immigrant, again, drop your comments in the chat. We'd love to get your perspective as well. As far as how the different educational systems are, but those in themselves can certainly have a huge impact on a child and or a young student in their development. And then you have on top of that the bullying that comes, because again, I got bullied. I mean,
Mhm.
I was a beanpole skinny. I mean, I was like, I was like a I don't, I don't want to say it, but I was like, I looked undernourished. I can eat like anything. Like I was a bottomless pit in terms of eating, but just couldn't put the weight on. When I graduated high school, I'm 6'3" and I weighed 147, actually about 140 pounds when I graduated high school. When I graduated college, I was 147 pounds. So I was very thin. So being nerdy, and then I was into the Star Wars and the Star Trek stuff and the fantasy and the science stuff. I was kind of, smart at the time. I liked science and technology. I liked I didn't dress like the cool kids 'cause we didn't have any money. I mean, I grew up basically single mom. My parents, they broke up when essentially after I was born. So my family split. I'm the youngest of five. My family was split up and went. So I was with my mom for a number of years until ninth grade. I was with her. Didn't have any money. My mom, she was a seamstress by trade. So she used to make my clothes when I went to school. She used to get those. For some of you guys are old school. Y'all remember those finger hut patterns. You would go to the department store and buy those patterns for clothes, for pants, for dresses, or whatever. She would buy the fabric. She would cut it out and pin it to the pattern. She had a sewing machine and she would sew up my clothes, and she made my clothes for the most part going to school. So I didn't have, back then it was the cool with the Converses or the Procats. I didn't have those. I had whatever they used to call them Mickeys, the shoes that you would get from the five and dime store that was like $5 for a pair. They were in the bin. You found your size. They were tied together by the string. You picked it up, and that was your shoe, and you went that way. So I didn't have a lot of luxuries. Certainly in my younger years, I got a lot of hand me down clothes from people, people that my mom knew, and so for me, school was challenging in that regard. Also, in that I didn't have a lot of I wasn't cool, and so because of that, I had to endure a lot of things. And this is, certainly that we can get into. I think we're going to find that common ground. Here you got two uncool kids in situations where we have to deal with those around us. So again, so you can pick up the story from here and talk about some of those experiences that you had. And so you always talk about the third day of school, and they're already picking at you. And they're
Before I
already
do
doing
that,
some
I
stuff.
want to touch base on one thing you said with the
Yeah.
clothing. When I lived in Greece, I only got hand-me-downs from family,
Yep.
friends, stuff
Same
like
here.
that.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
only thing I got once a year was a haircut. Once a year was a lot of haircut. That's it. Once a year.
Mm,
And a pair of shoes once a year. That's it. I'm not talking about church clothes either. That was completely different. You had
right.
two pair of clothes. One Sunday, you wear one outfit. Next Sunday, you wear the other one with one dress pants. I mean, dress shoes.
And
And that's it.
that was it. Yeah.
Because we didn't have money like that. Like it
Yeah.
was like you know how that is. It's
It
struggle.
was
Like my
rough.
dad.
Yeah, my
Yeah.
mom, she would come with a bag because my mom, she also used to, because again, we were kind of nomadic. Like we actually my just to and I've shared this in the past also, just for full transparency. My mom had paranoid schizophrenia for many years, and still does. And so, we lived literally from place to place. Where my father took my older kids, and they moved. Some of them moved down to Georgia for a while, and some of them moved, to other parts of the state. And I was with her, and we bounced around from place to place, and we would literally live with people for periods of time, and then we would move because they got tired of her because she would have like these episodes and whatnot, and we would have to, they would just get tired of us and they kick us out. So I was always in different school systems, within the area. I probably changed schools at least 3 or 4 times in those formative years. And again, a lot of times, like when we were there, again, she would just come with a bag of clothes, some hand-me-downs that someone had gotten from her, and that's what I went to school in. If I didn't have those, again, it was clothes that she literally made from scratch. And then people look at the brand. It's like, where's the brand name on here? It's like, oh, your mom made that. And at the time, I didn't know any better either. So I would, initially, I was proud to say, yeah, my mom made this jacket for me. And they would laugh at me because they were saying that she didn't have the money to buy me like a Lee jacket or a brand or designer jacket or what have you. So we'll have to deal with that as well. But again, you don't know what you don't know. But you certainly, when you get into school, you start realizing that you are different from from all the other kids. And that was something that was certainly ingrained in you.
And the other one that was a culture, I mean, a culture shock for me was when I found out, and like you grew up in like this, like your parents were not together. I'm like, what do you mean your parents not together? I'm like, oh, your parents, like, your dad's working, right? Like, no, my dad lives in, over there. My mom lives over here, and they
Mhm.
share me. What do you mean you share you?
Yeah.
I'm like, huh? It didn't make sense to me for at first. Then I as I'm talking to him, like, oh, you mean they're divorced? For divorce rate in Greece at the time was literally at 1%. That's how low it was. Like,
Mhm.
you might at both schools, I only met one kid that his parents were divorced. Everybody else parents were together.
Right.
So that was a shocker for me too. But back to what we're saying, like, yeah, I got bullied a lot with my clothes. So, and then the way I talked, I was like, yes, ma'am, no, sir. I'm like, yes, ma'am, no, sir. Or are you in the military? I'm like,
Mm.
no, that's how you address people.
Right.
Like when you meet somebody, you always take your hand and shake the hand. And they were doing this little, like the pound they call it now, I guess. And like the way they handshake now, and like, uh, I was like messing it up, like a fist bump. Like, what's a fist bump? I'm like,
Right.
that I wasn't familiar with that yet. And as I'm like getting older and like trying to figure this out, I had to figure this out fast.
Mhm.
My blessing in disguise was actually my mom's friends' kids that they were older, but not that much older. They were, I was in junior high and he was just, I think he was in 11th or 12th grade. I can't remember. He was in high school. And he, he
Right.
literally kind of took me by the hand, like, dude, I gotta help you before you get fucking stabbed or something.
Mhm.
And we're learning this. It's like, oh, this is a handshake. Why didn't I say so? I'm like, you kind of need to know this stuff. I'm like, again, I'm not from the country because a lot
Right.
of people in ESL class. Now, I went to ESL class again when I
Mhm.
first came here. It was
Okay.
mostly Spanish. I had,
Right. Right.
I was
Yeah.
like,
Typically here.
yeah, it was 20 of them. It was about 18 Spanish. One was from China. Can't remember the other one. Or I think it was Russian, and
Mhm.
me, Greek.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's about right.
they focused on the Spanish kids because that's something they knew. They couldn't even figure out how to add, translate things. Like, we don't know how to help you, they said to me. I'm like, what do you mean they don't know how to help you? I'm like, you're the teacher. Like, I don't know Greek. I don't know what to tell you. And I walked
Yeah.
away. So
You
that
walked
was like,
away. How
yeah,
were you able to do that?
teachers just walked away. She didn't know how to help
Oh,
me.
the teachers will walk away.
Yeah.
Okay. So
They couldn't.
you didn't get anything out of that ESL
No.
experience.
Yeah.
Did it affect you academically? How did you,
Oh yeah, it
just
hurt me
with the general
so bad.
class?
So from going from ESL, they tried to put me in regular classes, and I struggled. I mean, I felt every class. That's how hard it was for me.
Okay.
So they literally, not literally, they almost told my mom, almost put a gun next to her head and tell her like, he's going to special ed. My mom, no, I don't need special ed. I just need a little help, and she's telling, just give him the help. I'm like, nope, he's going to special ed.
Wow.
And I got sent to special ed. Even the special ed teachers couldn't help me because the language barrier was so hard for me.
Yeah.
Like, that's where, and I made this publicly before. I have a reading and spelling disability because of my bilingual. And if you go to my contact right now and you say, I have spelling mistakes all over it, I know it. And people call me out on it all the time. And I'm thanking for that. I'll
Mhm.
fix them. But it is.
Right.
So to Dr. Nukemi's question, that I don't know, to be honest with you, because I didn't ask those questions back then. But I'll find out. I know a few people who are divorced in Greece now. I can find out through my friends, to be honest.
Right. And just certainly for the group. First of all, embrace the grace. Good. Thank you for coming through here tonight. And not sure if this message is for us or for someone in the chat. But again, certainly you can reach out to us to get our information, or we can get information to you. You can also find us. I'm on Instagram, Paul to on Instagram, if you want to drop us a note. But again, I'm not sure if that was for us. But in any event, but again, we thank you for coming through here tonight. But just also want to kind of give you guys a primer in terms of how this is going to go. So again, for this first night, for this first show, we're talking about our educational background. So again, comparing the school systems between the U.S. and Greece, also based on our personal experiences as being the people that we are. Again, how we're similar in terms of our economic situation, in terms of our family situations. Again, my parents were also separate, and it's interesting what
Mhm.
you said earlier about um, them being separate because so were mine. But the D word was not an option with my parents' generation. My parents were from the South and they could be totally separate. Like my dad, he would have other women, whatever. My mom, really didn't date out, but you could have that kind of life. But the divorce word was just not done. So it was almost like you would be sent to hell if you divorce somebody, but you lived apart from them. So I can kind of see how that be the case in Greece also. But just to kind of give you guys how these shows plan to run. So again, we're talking about school tonight, but next week we are going to be talking about marriage. We're going to be talking about growing up, like what family life is like between Greek and American culture. What's it like to go back to the country after you've been in America for so long? What's it like to go back to it? We're going to talk about religion. Again, we're not having a religious debate, but just comparing, a Greek Orthodox religion to traditional Protestant religion or Catholic religion in this country, how it's done in the United States. So we're going to have a series of shows where we're going to be talking about these cultural backgrounds, how things are done, and maybe in the interim, the fact that you raised that question, Dr. Nakume, that Peter can look into, what's that like in Greece? What is the that system like in terms of parental rights and whatnot? Those are certainly topics that we can research on because, like I said, Peter's been away from that for so long, and with things changing so much, laws may have changed from the times that he might have remembered back in the 90s. So again, in the chat also, please feel free to again post your questions in the chat or ask questions on things that we can have ideas for future shows of content or within the conversation that we're having.
And a
Certainly
sign
your
up for
comments are
everybody
welcome.
also. If anybody
Yeah,
wants to reach out to me, ask me some other questions after the show is aired and a rerun or something, uh, look me on Facebook. Grooming Reviews 101 is my group page. Or if you go onto my channel, I have my emails and everything under there too. So be free to contact me anytime you want. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
absolutely, absolutely. All right. So getting back to okay, so you're in sixth grade. You're
Yep,
going through the ESL, not getting the support that you need in ESL.
correct.
You're failing classes. So again, you already would state, were held back. I guess in Greece, you were held back.
Yep,
Now it's like they're holding you back again, and now they're
correct.
saying that you need to go into special ed, not because you're not intelligent or smart or don't know anything, but again, you need help and that help is not available to you. And I've seen this a
Correct.
lot, even just with American kids. For kids who may have issues with learning somehow, kids who are dyslexic or what have you. A lot of these school systems oftentimes don't have don't put the money into resources to help. And with the budgets being what they are, like I said, if you're a homeowner here, your property taxes are paying for a lot of this stuff. And a lot of times we ask, especially if you go to schools board meetings, you're asking yourself, well, where's all our money going? And is it really, and how much of this is really going to help the kids out? Especially for those who are struggling educationally, having learning issues or need more, tutoring after school or whatnot. Where are those resources? And you have a lot of parents, even though you are paying high property taxes, you still have to pay for private tutoring and things. And then we have to do that with our girls at certain points in time. So you're in this situation. Okay, so now you're talking about special ed, which is, so what was that experience like for you? And ultimately towards the end of this conversation, I want to get to, did things turn, or when did things turn, or what series of events may have happened that turned for you where you started to get adjusted to life here and started to thrive a little bit better. But you can pick it up from your special ed period.
So things got worse actually for me.
Mm,
To the point that I isolated myself completely from everybody. Like my friends was anime, Dragon
mm,
Ball Z, Gundam, Power Rangers. The
right.
person is the only person I could talk to was, and I know it was inappropriate at the time, and my mom and dad was always working, so I didn't know that, was the guy who rented our apartment downstairs. He was a geek like me. So he was in his 45. Nothing ever happened. We're just conversation always. I was like, with my dog outside, and we're always talking about stuff. And
Mhm.
and he told me, like, you can swing back, not literally, but swing back with defend yourself words. And I remember the one time I actually snapped. I finally snapped this kid,
Mhm.
and they're picking on me and picking on me and picking on me. I always stay quiet. And he thought it was be funny. He snuck in a can of Coke in his class, and he found it to be funny as he's drinking it to pour over my head.
Mm.
So, side note, and you know this, I was always taking martial arts all of my years, and my martial art training said, "Don't hit. Nobody hits you. You don't hit back, no matter what." This
Mhm.
is the time I actually snapped. I turned
Mhm.
around, slapped the can out of his hand. I grabbed him from the throat, and I literally choke slammed him right through the table. And I was not letting him go to his face popped like a goddamn fucking cherry. I told that teacher,
Mm.
he's gonna pop like a cherry. It took 3 teachers plus 2 security guards to get me off him at the point.
Mhm.
My mom comes down and goes, "The hell happened?" She, in a way, she was smiling. She was finally happy I actually did something.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she goes to the teachers like, "We've been down here several times without him knowing, talking to him. We're not stupid. We don't speak good English, but we're not stupid." And she had a
Mhm.
friend with her who was a teacher
Mhm.
in a different school district and says, like, "Listen, this needs to stop." And like, she goes to me home, and my father spoke to me like, "Somebody puts your hands on you or makes fun of you, you break their neck."
Yeah.
Like, I can't do that. Like, then my instructor, like Master Ray Kazaka, he goes, "It doesn't matter. He put your hands on you. They disrespected you. You destroy them now. You have my permission." Like, oh, I have permission. So I put that big smile.
Mm.
I'm like, but I still didn't do anything. That day was a tipping stone. Like, you're not gonna fuck with me anymore. You fuck with me, I break your bones. Simple as that.
Mhm.
And then I went to summer school, and then one of those kids I was picking on me, he was picking on me. So he learned the hard way why you don't fuck with me. He walked
Mm.
away with 2 broken legs at that point. I
2
couldn't
broken
finish them.
legs.
Oh yeah, I wanted to finish him off. So I went, he tried to push me. I went for the legs. I kicked him, where like a side kick.
Yeah.
So I snapped his shin. So I knew he was in pain. I grabbed the other one and I finished it.
Mm.
So I did not want to have any doubts who he fucked with at that point. It was excessive. Absolutely, it was so excessive. It was something in the movies. I was like, if I had a kid, I would never tell him to do that. To be honest with you,
Mhm.
but it what got to the point like I had to defend myself. It was so bad.
Right, right. But having
Like,
said that now, were you expelled? I would think that, you know
no, actually, I
w
wasn't expelled because the teachers, my mom always documented everything. Every time they spoke to the principal, it was documented who it was and how it was.
mhm.
And this is they're just being kids. Nothing we can do about it. If I
That
bet
was
you
right,
now,
that was yeah, that was the line that was said to me a lot also because I would get picked on, my mom would come down or whatever, and then the
yeah,
administrator would say the same thing. So right, so it got to a point where, my mom was like, "Look, if they're coming at you." Now again, I couldn't necessarily beat these guys because again, like I said, I was a beanpole kid. I didn't know martial
mhm,
arts. I didn't, I was very easy to pick on because just physically I didn't have the tools. But my mom made it very clear that if someone swings on you, if you don't swing back, then I'm gonna swing on you. And that was where my fear came from. It was like my mom hitting me because I didn't try to fight back in a certain way. So yeah. So that was how I
see,
had to address the situation.
at that point, I came into a depression mode almost, I would say.
Hmm.
And I was 7th grade, I believe it was. And I was having a really bad day. They're picking on me still. I'm like, I'm kicking your ass and you're still picking on me. Like, I can't win here. And I'm like, I
Hmm.
looked at it like I made a stupid comment. And I know it was an appropriate comment I made. And like, I wish someone just end my fucking life at this point. I give up. I
Oh, you
was
got
not
to that. You
suicidal.
got low. So you got
Yeah, I
low.
hit rock bottom. And I was never going to take my life. I just made a stupid comment. I just vented.
Hmm.
And next thing I know, all the therapists in the class, I'm like, what the fuck happened here? Now you're suspended. Suspended? For what? I just made a comment. And it's not like I'm going to hurt anybody or kill somebody. It was just a word I made. It's like, I don't understand why I'm against suspended. Like, no, you need to understand this is very, very inappropriate what you said. So another therapist had come to the house, check on my mom, make sure they looked around the house, they checked what like you're just being a kid. The therapist looked, he asked me a lot of questions. It was like 20 plus questions, and they said to her, he was having a bad day. He vented. I wish he vents more, actually. Like the only thing I'm going to recommend is a couple therapy sessions through school therapist just for he can vent to let it out because he has a lot on his plate as a kid. It is way too much to have it on his plate.
Right.
I'm like, oh, somebody's on my side. I'm like, so she said to him, like, you need to let him express himself. Like, my parents fought me tooth and nail. Like, I wanted to buy a t-shirt. I could afford it. I was working. I was literally working at very young age because diners don't follow the
Right.
the laws actually.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
if you can walk, you can work, you can make money, you can work. That's what theory we had in diners. So I was already making money. So my parents like, no, you're not buying that shirt. That's only for bums. But they didn't understand the style. That's what it was. So the therapist says you need to like express himself. Oh, I remember the first pair of pants I brought home. My mom looked at me like, "You're not leaving the house with that." Like, oh yes, I am. The
What
first
pants
time
were these?
they were
What
very,
these?
very baggy pants I got from Hot Topic.
Okay.
So she looked at me like, no, you're not leaving it. Like we got in a little bit of argument. I got my ass whooped a little bit, and she won the fight. I was able to take them back and just get a few size smaller. That's what she wanted.
Okay.
So that's where transition started happening for me. I'm like, okay, now you're chilling. You're not as you really are now. You're not gonna pick on me as much. Now if you're gonna talking to people that now I went from 6th grade to 7th grade, going into 8th grade, people are actually accepting me. They're talking to me. I'm like, well, you guys are cool now? Fuck you, kind of thing. No. So when I went to high school, I had a whole different group. People didn't even know who I am. People were like talking to me like I was part of the collect. So like, what the hell's going on here? So I accepted it and I going with it. And what was a big transition for me is one of the kids comes in, goes to me, "Hey, you're in my shorts." I'm like, "Yeah." He's my diner talking like, you should try the football team. I'm like, me football? I don't think so. I'm like, I didn't know anything too much about it. He goes, we make a deal. He goes, I'll come try one class if you try football. I'm like, fair enough. I have win. I can get cool, brownie points with sensei, and you get your ass kicked. I'm gonna win this fight.
Right.
And it wasn't for his thing. I respect that. He goes, now you guys try football. And I talked to my sensei, and we modify a couple martial art moves, let's say, for illegal reasons. And I remember hitting the first kid, and he goes, "Just hit the kid. That's all you gotta do." I'm like, again, I knew soccer. I didn't know football. I'll go, okay, I hit him. I hit him so hard, I popped his helmet off. The coach goes, "You're on the team." I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna start anything. I'm too small. I was always been a scrawny guy. So the only thing I wanted to is use the gym room, the weight room. That's all I wanted. Worked out, and I remember my first game. You're gonna laugh your ass off right now. So he goes, my coach, "You're in." I'm like, "Me? Oh no, I'm not in. I'm a cheerleader." I grabbed the pop. I'm like, "Yeah, you hoo ha." I'm like, he goes, "Are you fucking kidding me?" I'm like, "Uh-oh." You get the fuck in the field. I'm like, "Okay, yes, sir." Yeah. I'm in there squaring off the guy's running his mouth. I'm gonna pop you. I'm like, you have no idea who you're fucking with at this point. I tackled him, popped his helmet off like a cherry again. I go, then the coach that was running on like, my coach going, "That's what I want from you every time." I'm like, "That's it?" He goes, "Yep, you're a defender." I'm like, "Oh, this is the easy sport. I can knock people out. That's easy." I won't get in trouble. Like, no suspension, no. And I'm getting rewarded out of it. Like, this is football. What do you think it is? Soccer? Kind of. Actually, yeah, I'm Greek. And he goes, "Yeah, it figures." So and that's where a big transition happened. The guys embrace my culture, embrace who I am. And next thing I know, girls are actually talking to me like, "Oh, I like this football thing." And I continued doing it, and I loved it.
Absolutely. But Blaze here has it now. That's something that resonates with everyone across the board. Bullying goes ignored or falls on deaf ears, but the second the bully receives their comeuppance, that's when they want to step in. Yeah, it's interesting. what's interesting about your case is you broke a guy's legs, right?
2 legs.
And you didn't get 2 legs, right? You didn't get suspended, but you utter a word that's mostly towards yourself,
Mhm.
and now they want to suspend you.
And it did.
So it just goes to show again how we deal with how schools oftentimes deal with conflict, or when kids are in trouble, or how they deal with bullying and whatnot. It's like you got to go through all of that, but just because you uttered a word, then people are like, oh, he's a problem kid or whatever. But what's also interesting about what you're saying here is we talked about with the Greek system. There is nothing in the school system for extracurriculars, for sports or what have you. But you really started to come into your own when you were able to, and you already taken martial arts on the side for years. But that's an individual endeavor.
Yeah.
But when you were able to participate in a sport where you can use some of that martial arts training that you had and also be effective, then it seemed like that's when things started to change for you. You kind of found your found a vehicle for which you not only to exercise your frustrations and but also to be accepted by other people, because now you're resonating on a level which they can relate to.
Correct.
And so getting back to that argument before about, should these extracurriculars be in the school systems? I think in America, I think it's almost a must here, because for a lot of kids, I'm sure they consider a story that playing sports or being part of a team environment or something where they can, belong to, that's what really helped them to grow acceptance and grow the self-esteem and things of that nature. So I couldn't imagine if you were in Greece, if similar things were happening, if you were still looked at as an outcast. Now, what would have happened, for example, if you would have did what you did in Greece? What would have been the punishment then?
I've been arrested.
Right.
I've been arrested, to be honest with you.
For breaking,
So
for breaking 2 legs of a guy.
in Greece,
And
my nickname was the American, and my grandma used to freak out of that. Like, they're going to kidnap my grandkid. Stop calling him the American. Yada yada. And back then I didn't understand what was the big deal calling me American. Now, okay, I can see what her point is. People look at
Right.
Americans like we have money. Everybody has money in America. That's not a
Right.
fact. We know that. We live here. We know that. Now, when I
Right.
came to to the States, my nickname turned into Greeky. I'm like, again, I didn't have anything wrong with it. It was like, whatever, the Greek, Then some people called me the Spartan, for example, like, Sparta, Greece. I
Right.
live in a different part of Greece, but I braced it. I was okay with that.
Right.
But when it came to sports, now I'm actually starting to fit in. People who used to pick on me came up to me and started having great
Right.
conversation. I'm like,
Right.
you used to fuck with me. He goes, yeah, so what? I was like, that was last year, dude. Come on, let's move on from there. I'm like, next thing I know, we're hanging out at my house and watching sports and stuff like that. I'm like, did I miss something here?
Yeah. Yeah.
But again,
Yeah. It's
a whole summer, a kid can mature like that.
mhm.
At the time back then, I never understood that. Now that I'm older, and I think Dr. Nakubi is going to agree with me, they can mature so rapidly, over a summer, and you might have left the kid being a punk, a bully, and comes back to be the most respectful kid ever now after 3 months or 4 months.
Right. Right. Yeah, definitely. I found just over the years, I mean, sports can certainly be that equalizer
Yeah.
to help kids to kind of go to, because again, like I said, both of us were into the anime. I wasn't so much in the diehard anime as you were, but I know a lot of my friends were. But the gaming, the role playing, the video games, the comic books, or whatever it was, we were into all of that. But I remember
But
just walking out. Again, I had very little athletic ability. Also, in top of being skinny and everything else. But thank goodness for my high school basketball coach. He actually let me step onto the team as a varsity player because I got cut in my junior year. I didn't make the team in my junior year, but he let me be on the team in my senior year. And that did so much for me in terms of just my self-esteem and image. Like I got into the game at garbage time, like on the basketball team. Like 2 minutes left in the game, we're up 30 points. Fine, let the scrubs in. You guys finish out the game or whatever. But I can't tell you how much that did, not only for my self-esteem and image, but again, how I was perceived. Bottom line is I was on the varsity basketball team. And at that point, it was like nobody would mess with me because one, we were a band of brothers. So if someone was messing with me on the basketball team, then the centers or whatever, they would come to my defense because look, you can't mess with my teammate. So that was one of the
that's
first
how it
times where
was for me too.
Right. So it was like you can't, so you felt for the first time you felt you belong. Like there was like a band of, in fact, it's interesting we're talking about this nerd talk, and maybe I get to another in the growing up show. But it's like if Big Bang Theory was around when we were in school. I mean, we could relate to that show so much because that's exactly who we were. You had maybe three or four of us who were like the nerdy kids who would spend time doing stuff, and we get picked on by everybody else. Now it's like almost like Big Bang Theory now is cool now. They kind of they kind of spoke to the nerd energy that we had, but just being a part of the team. Like I wasn't going to win any games. I wasn't going to be a starter. I was going to play major minutes, but just being in the practices every day. I had to practice like everybody else, though. You know what I mean? I had to run the sprints. I had to run the dozens. I had to take my foul shots. I had to, I had to play, the B team in terms of, helping the starters to prepare. And that was one of the best times of my life at that time, not from the background that I came
Mhm.
from, split family, being an outcast, being, bullied and all those things. But that really did a lot for me. So I'm saying all this to say in terms of how we look at what sports, especially within the school systems, what that does here. It may not apply to other places because again, they just operate under a different model. But for you and I to be the people who we were, and through sports being available in the school system, was certainly something that helped us to be where we are. So again, as a gray area, again, this sort of commonality that we may find just being in the states is something that I think we can certainly relate to and join us together. So we're coming from very different places, but we all kind of converge on the same spot. And I think sports in school, athletics in school, and I'm a big proponent, obviously, of fitness. On the side, I'm a personal trainer as well. And so I'm a big advocate for the need for physical sports in school, or at least exercise. I mean, back in the day, we used to out in Greece. Did you guys have gym class? Let me ask you that.
Yes, actually, but it
Like
was
formal.
nothing like here. It was out, it was not actually in the gym. It was outside where you had recess.
No, I get it.
So
But did you guys do, for example, like calisthenics? Like we had, you went to gym, right? You had a
mhm.
big gymnasium. You lined up in rows of like, you know, 20, 30, 40 kids, and it was like the military. Like you did jumping jacks and you had a cadence: 1 2 3 1 1 2 3 2. You had
It
to
was
do
similar,
push-ups.
yes.
Yeah, so you had that kind of, it was like drilled into you, that kind of work. That And we also had to have fitness tests where you had to, you know, you had to pass gym class. Like here, it's almost like now, you just show up for gym and you pass gym. It's hard to fail gym. That then, if you were a kid, like based on your age, if you were 12 years old, you had to do like 30 push-ups in a minute or something, or if you had to do like 10 chin-ups to get an A in that. You had fitness tests that you had to pass back then in order to pass. Did they have something similar in
So they have calisthenics to warm you up and all that stuff, but we did not have obviously locker rooms and anything that we came in with our gym clothes that day. And the day we have
Mhm.
the gym, but we did not have a physical standard for the government saying you have to do 30 push-ups for this much or do this much, run this far. No, it was nothing like that.
Yeah, yeah. Blaze is commenting again. Yeah, it's like it's never thing I truly understood in school or even now. Bullying kids who were smart. Too many kids thought lacking knowledge was a flex. Absolutely. But again, I think and again, not justifying, but I think it was everything. It's not only that we were smart, because obviously we were. Again, you and I, we probably read at very early ages. I remember my mom giving me encyclopedias when I was very young. And I think I read like every encyclopedia, like from cover to cover. So in addition to that, just being different, just being the interest that we had, not being in the gen pop in terms of interest that everybody else were doing. We just kind of went to our, different drugs, and people just didn't know how to handle that. I think, you could say today people might be more accepting of people or kids who might be different from another, but there's still cliques that sometimes
Yep.
happen also. And the crazy thing is you get cliques within the nerd community also, right?
Actually, yeah.
You got the
DC
Star
or
Wars clicks
Marvel.
versus the Star Trek clicks, or the
A
DC
good
over
example there.
Marvel.
There, yeah.
Yeah, so it's interesting that now even within those nerd communities there are those things as well. But yeah, it's just unfortunate that in addition to trying to learn, all right, and I do want to get back to this since again, our primary subject is the school. When did school, in terms of the actual learning, become better or easier for you? So you've been left back essentially 3 times, twice in Greece and at least once here. You
Mhm.
go to special ed and whatnot. Was there a point in time when education became like the light went on, you started getting better grades, B's and A's or whatever? Was that ever, when did that come after the football? Once you got a part of that, was that when the academics turned around and you started to perform better academically?
So when I started going to high school, when I got into high school,
Mm.
um, I started getting better because I had an option to do BOCES, Voltec, I think they call it now.
Tech,
And
yeah.
yep, I wanted to become a mechanic. I don't think me being a spaceship engineer is in my
Mhm.
card with my disability. I knew I had a reading problem. My parents could not understand why. The school couldn't understand why at the time. They caught it literally 1 year before I graduated, and it was too late at the point. So
What, that's
what
what, dyslexia or what was it?
on paper the doctor term was a reading spelling disability because of bilingual. They said on the paper.
Mm,
I'm
okay.
like, yeah, you catch it a little too early. Like pretty much from what I understand now is if they gave me the extra help we asked from the beginning, I wouldn't be in this position I'm in now.
Right.
That's all they needed. So when I became a mechanic, I was working being a mechanic. I was, want to be a mechanic and I was learning. And my teacher looked at me like, you're good at this. I'm like, what, working with my hands? And he goes, yeah. Have you worked with your hands before? I cook. I'm like, okay, we all cook at home. Like, no, I cook professionally. I went to him. What do you mean? I work at a diner. I bus on weekends,
Right, right. You said you
Monday
working at
through
a lot.
some 2-3 days a week I cook, and the other 1 or 2 days I assist and manage. She goes, you do that and go to school. I'm like, yeah, and I'm a volunteer firefighter. I went to mine at a time. I'm like, and you play sports too? I'm like, yeah. How do you find time to sleep? Like, sleep. It's easy. Just get in bed and like that, sleep for a few hours.
Right,
I had all that
right.
energy to burn off. So I was like, literally, some days I'll go from school to practice to karate to Pokemon cards to home. That's how some days were. And people didn't understand that stuff. And like even now, like it became easier when I actually didn't have to take all those classes when I was working
Mhm,
with my hands. And I
mhm.
remember, doing my first test, and he goes, and my teacher goes, come here. Let's do this together. I'm like, I know you have a reading disability. He never gave me the answers. He helped me read the answers. He goes, which one is it, Peter? You know this. I got some wrong, like any other kid. But my grades went from an F to an A's like that.
Mm,
I remember scoring my first
that's really
95. I'm
good
like,
to know.
wow, 95, really?
Yeah, it's a great question.
Yeah.
What would you say to that? So again, was your struggle, do you ever consider dropping out of school just due to what you were facing out there?
No, it wasn't an option because my dad would kill me probably.
Okay.
No, it wasn't an option because I learned at a very young age, failure's not an option. As much as I want to give up, I learned that through my martial arts. I learned that through my boss who I had in the diner.
Mhm,
I learned that through my mechanic teacher because you're not gonna give up. We're gonna figure this out together,
mhm.
and we always figured it out. Always figured it out.
Right.
And whatever he is, I bless his heart.
Okay.
And
I think there's
yes,
people, I
yeah,
truly believe this, that there are people that, that come into your life for a reason. And some people come in for a season.
yeah,
But that person, really made a difference. But what I find interesting about your particular case is that disability that you were talking about, that was like caused. Like dyslexia, whatever, that's just like, you might be born with that is something that's there. But that, like, what you went through could have been treated, but just because of your family situation, the moving, the constant
hmm
being between 2 languages and not necessarily becoming, fluent, in either. So that was like a situation that was just, um, uh, created more so than just something you just came in inherently that they had to work through. And it's just, I'm happy that, certainly you were able to again get those people in your life to really help you turn things around, and you were able to, again, get that mastery and again turn those F's into A's and whatnot. I think for me, I certainly didn't have any learning disabilities and whatnot, but just my home life was just unstable. I think I said just being with my mother. And again, we reached a breaking point. So, like in your household, where again, you don't talk about to your parents or whatnot, and snapping, my snap actually came at my mom. And so it just got to a point where I got about 13, 14, where I just stopped caring about, just being under that stressful situation. And we would just go at it. I would just cuss her out. I just really, I just, just living in that. And like I said, the rest of my family was like separated from the situation. And unfortunately, in order to get me out of the situation, it actually took a situation where my oldest sister finally had enough of it. And she said, she went and got my dad, who was like off and sort of doing his whole thing. And because I was failing academic, this is like, like eighth, ninth grade, I was, academics weren't good. So she took me in for a minute. She took me from my mom and put her, it took me for a minute, but it was uncomfortable because, her husband didn't necessarily like me being there, like, it's like I'm kind of infringing on the family, so to speak. And, but so finally she got my dad and basically said, "Look, your son is in trouble and you need to go and get him. You need to go and set up just like he did for for the other four siblings." She was like, "You need to do the same thing for him. He needs a home. You guys need to get a house, because what's interesting is just to show you how far my family came off. Now, my father was one of the because you had like a lot of people from the South in the 50s, in the 60s after the Korean War and whatnot. A lot of them came from the South to the North, and they got jobs like at GM plants, at Ford plants. My dad selling in New Jersey because he was in the military. He bought a house on the FHA. He had a two-family house, and all of my aunts and uncles when they moved to New Jersey looking for work, they stayed with my mother and father. And so they were like a almost like an underground railroad. Like they really helped everybody get established here. But
Mhm.
when my mom's schizophrenia got real bad, and he was a big drinker. So when they split, you know, they wound up losing that house. And interestingly enough, when my sister went to my dad, he was actually living in that. He didn't own the house anymore. I mean, one time we came back to the house and was like boarded up because of unpaid, mortgage and all that. So bank took the house, all that kind of stuff. My dad was actually living in that house in the basement of the house that he used to own in one room. And my sister was like, "Look, you need to get out of this stupor that you're in. You got a son that's in trouble. He needs a home. You need to, So it was my dad, she got him out of his stupor. My brother came to live with us. He's the next oldest. He's 6.5 years older than I am. And we lived together from 1984 through high school and through college. We were essentially in that we'll live together. But that's when things turned around for me. So one was, being in a stable home environment where I could focus. Like I had these interests and whatnot. I wasn't smart. Like I said, I read at an early age. It wasn't like I was smart, but just with all the drama, it was just like I had no way to express myself. And so when I got into like a stable home environment, then that's when my D's and F's turned to A's. And I remember just academically, because I remember into my sophomore year, they didn't even know if I had the grades even to get in the college. We didn't even talk about college then. But I did such a dramatic thing between my junior and senior year. I moved up like almost like 100 kids in rank in my class. And I was able to get into Rutgers and the different schools that were in the area and whatnot. So family environment I think was a major thing in addition to the bullying and the physical and the geekiness and the nerdiness and all that kind of stuff. Definitely having a stable home life was key for me to excel in school. And again, unfortunately, you have a lot of kids today who had it worse than me. I'm not saying I was last. I didn't say I had the worst situation, but it was bad enough. And for a lot of kids, especially Black kids, African American kids, who are in these situations, who are in these homes, they're in these conditions where school is just can't be focused on because, you go home, you might not have anything to eat when you get home. You know what I'm saying? I mean, so it's, there's such conditions outside of that that keeps kids from really being able to focus on school that cause issues for them. But I am grateful for, like I said, the sports. Again, the basketball team, that was a getting my home situation situated to a degree, and then being able to join the team, and then starting to work and whatnot. That's when I think the changes started happening for me in terms of being able to do to start to perform better and be a better version of myself. But
The question I
but
do
we've
have
been
for you is,
yeah.
did you feel like you need stability in your life to do better?
Oh, 100%. Um, I function best under a stable situation. Now, I've learned to work in chaos. I think certainly that's a skill I think that I've learned over time.
Hmm.
But early on, from an academic standpoint, that stability was important. I need to know what my next day was going to be like. I mean, the problem with my mom was like I would go to school, I would come home, I didn't know who I was going to see when I got home. Because if you ever known anybody who had like schizophrenia or whatever, it's like Jekyll and Hyde. So you came in and I just have a whole bunch of dramas like who's got time to do homework when, she's coming at me with something or I'm getting a beating for something that I didn't do. So, she's accusing me that I did something that I didn't do or whatever. So it was like I said, it was just a situation where just academics was the last thing. Like I went to school to kind of get out of the house, but at the same time, I was scared sometimes to go home because I didn't know what I was going to have to deal with when I got home. And so, so yeah, being in an environment, even though my dad, he had his issues as well, but it was a lot more stable environment where at least I knew, what to expect from him, and I knew that, he wasn't going to get in the way of the um, get out of the way of me at least doing things. Because he was like my mom. She was so protective, and like, I couldn't go anywhere. Like she wouldn't let me out of her sight, pretty much, thinking that I was going to be abducted or literally like some alien was going to come and take me. That's the state of her paranoia. Because I think she watched a lot of those 50 horror movies from back in the day. They came from space or the body snatchers or whatever, and she used to talk about this stuff. Like I would come home and say, "You're a clone. You're not my son. You're a clone of my son. Where's my son?" Go, who are you? Like, where's this
That's
coming
how
from?
bad
Like,
was it, huh?
yeah, it was pretty it was pretty it was pretty rough. And like I said, Dr. Nkume's point again, at the time, no, all the older four siblings, like my brother is 6.5 years older than me, and then all the other siblings are like 2 or 3 years apart. At the time that my parents split, my father essentially took the older ones with him, and I stayed back with my mom. And for a number of years, I was with my mom up um, until about ninth grade, eighth and ninth grade, with her. And so it wasn't until um, she intervened. So again, initially I stayed with her. I finished out my freshman year staying with her and her family, but that got contentious because her husband didn't necessarily let me be in there. And so when she reached out to him and like I said, got him out of the basement of the house that we used to own, then that's when things started to change around for me. And then my brother came in because he was kind of bouncing around from place to place. Also, we were all kind of like in this kind of nomadic type of space for a while, But the fact that they were closer to age and they were together. At least they had them each other to kind of rely upon. I didn't. I was almost like an only child, like you, growing in that
Hmm.
situation. So all those things. Uh, um, um, all kind of came to a head, and I was able to change it around. Certainly I'd say by my sophomore year of high school, when things started to kind of turn around, I started to really be able to focus and dial in on what I need to do, and I can just be about the books and be about because I love to learn. Especially I love history, I love science, I love all that stuff.
Same
I
here.
love physics. I mean, I did very well in those classes, and I always knew I was going to get into the tech field, computer science and whatnot. I knew that pretty early on, but I just needed can you just let the kid be a kid and let him just focus on one thing where he's not worrying about what he's going to eat that night? Because a lot of times when I was with my mom, we didn't know. Now, you remember back in the day when you buy the chicken and inside they had like the gizzards and the necks and stuff inside the bird that was wrapped in a paper, right? You
Yeah,
remember?
yeah, 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 yeah.
Now it got to a point. I knew things were good when I had chicken. I knew things were not good when night after night dinner was chicken and lizards and gizzards from the bird from the wraps because she used to keep those like in the freezer, and that would be my dinner like every night with maybe some rice and some chicken livers and necks and whatnot. Now was it. That was dinner for weeks. And sometimes I didn't even have that. Sometimes it was like bread with mayo on it. I mean, so we were just, just in a bad stage, but nobody stepped in until my big sister stepped in and she just said, enough. And that's really, so I just like, the gentleman that came into your life, certainly I owe my sister for being able to step in and kind of rescue me from that situation. Otherwise, I'd be telling another story right now. But still, the fact that the schools were able to have those extracurriculars there helped me to focus in on the academics. Whereas if it was just the academics or whatever, I would have, it could have went, it could have, definitely went another way for me. So, and it's interesting now. It's ironic that my mom is still alive, and I take care of her now. So it's crazy how a lot of that stuff, how time, because you start to
Yeah.
understand because we didn't know, like no one knew what this was. We just back then he was like, "You crazy," you know, "You talking crazy, you acting crazy." No one knew diagnosed what schizophrenia was, or no one understood what that situation was like. And so,
Obviously, I never had it as bad as that, but there were times that I know we were struggling, food and stuff like that with those
mhm,
scales. But I always the mindset I had was like, we'll get out of it. We always do. We always,
mhm,
we'll come back up.
yeah,
And I remember the time we lost a house, like, oh, this is bad.
yeah,
And that's how we moved to PA. And things always turn around again and turn around again. And like now that I'm in the captain's sheet, I'm like, okay, now I see what the responsibility is. Nobody teaches that as a kid, and I get it. I get it. It's you want to do better, and that's
yeah,
the goal for
yeah,
everybody.
yeah. Just want to acknowledge the chat as we're coming to the end here. We said early on we're going to try to keep these shows to about 2 hours, but it's good. I mean, obviously, the conversation's flowing and whatnot, so I don't necessarily want to cut that off. But again, thank you for everyone who's decided to join us tonight. Thank you to Easy Money, but the Easy Money coming and just to stop by and support us. Appreciate it. Mrs. She said, thank you for also coming through, brother Trey Ferg. How about those Cowboys tonight? And yes,
Walk boys.
from JT, yes, the Detroit Lions beat the Rams by 24-23. So again, just like yesterday was kind of predictable, but today you definitely had some upsets today. But certainly the Lions Rams game was supposed to be a pretty competitive game. But certainly for you guys, I know playoffs is going on and whatnot, but for you guys to come through and see us, definitely we appreciate you coming in. And again, certainly you see our Cash App scrolling at the bottom screen. If you're so moved to support us through the Cash App, you'll see our information scrolling at the bottom. We appreciate you guys coming in. But I think we're kind of winding this down to some final thoughts. Grooming, you took us on a journey, and I learned a lot about, again, just the differences between, again, the school systems in Greece versus in the United States. And I'm sure there's some advantages to that, but there's also some disadvantages. But it also, I think, it makes you more appreciative. One takeaway, gray area that I think we can come to is that to be appreciative of the opportunities that we have in America. Yes, the school systems aren't perfect, and
Agree.
there's a lot of social political agendas that might be going on in schools that people don't appreciate. But when you can hear from the experiences of someone who comes from another culture, another country, another educational system, and how they're able to, what that process is like. We take for granted a lot of things that are available to us here, and so maybe that's one thing we can be more appreciative and better use the things that are available to us. Things are here, but if you're not focused, or if you're coming from a situation like I did, where your family situation might not be such where you can focus in on the learning or getting the support that you need to learn. Hopefully just learning a little bit about our experiences. Again, as different as we are, as different, we're literally worlds apart from each other, but we
Yeah.
converged in on having these similar interests, having similar backgrounds. I didn't know, like, your parents were kind of separate but together, same like mine was, and being able to, through sports, being offered through the school systems, to help us to find a footing so that we could start to do better. Um, no, hopefully these are gray areas that I think that hopefully we can take from tonight. Again, finding that common bond that unites us, and hopefully through our inspiration, through our own personal stories, that people will be motivated. If you have young people in your life that maybe going through some things, maybe you could be that person who inspires somebody, or you give your help or assistance to someone. I mean, I always salute Black Man for so much help he gives to these kids with the youth, especially the football coach that he is. And when he comes home and kids are at his house, just the influence that he has. You never know what kind of influence you can have on a young person for being available to kids who might come from a troubled situation, may not come from a perfect, household. But you can be a difference in the life of that individual. So, but so I think as we start to wind down the show to closing thoughts, certainly grooming. If you want to take this on, and I think this is I've enjoyed this conversation. I think just
I did too,
knowing you
actually.
better and knowing about a little bit more about Greek culture better, which I certainly look to see and love to hear about in the coming weeks to come as this goes on. Salute to Black Man. Thank you so much for the platform. I can't tell you um, what a blessing you've been to so many people in this space, giving opportunity to people who have ideas and sharing, because because you're the one who has a lot to lose here. I mean, we can come here and foul this up, but you certainly giving us that. I really appreciate it. And for anyone, just to give the plug, this is a channel worth supporting. I mean, no hate to anybody who's making content out there. No hate to anybody, really. But you know, Black Man's content is of high value. And I think it's certainly a channel that does, should have. I'm looking at subscribers. We should have five times the subscribers that we have. And I'll just put it out there.
I agree,
So
actually.
again, like this content, share the content, hit the like button. If you didn't get a chance to hit the like button when you came in, hit the like button. Drop a comment in the comment section. Let us know what you're thinking about these shows and how we can do better and be better as we go on. I know in next month he'll be out of YouTube probation. Hopefully, he'll get his cash, super chats back and everything, and the subscriptions. Again, my subscription got suspended for a while. I'm subscribed to this channel, but it was suspended when he got kind of put in time out for the 30 days or whatever. My subscription got suspended. So but again, for the audience out there, again, this is content worth subscribing to and being a part of to help this network grow. As because we're trying to bring adult conversation solutions. Yes, we get crazy sometimes. We get in our ways sometimes, but we always always resolve things at the end. And again, these are the conversations that we need to have that not too many channels were having. So I encourage anyone to subscribe to the Black Man Unfiltered Network and help this brother and the people that work with him to we can continue to have intelligent, informed, thoughtful conversations like me and Grumman were able to have tonight. We want to be a part of this, and we want you to be a part of helping us to grow this network. So that's really my closing. But Grumman, you want to close us out here with your final?
Yeah, I want to
comments?
bounce a couple things off too. Also,
Yes, sir.
so about helping people. Yeah, this is what biggest reason why I'm doing this to help somebody, open somebody's eyes out. So, from you guys who do follow my personal channel, Grooming Reviews 101, on Mondays is Motivation Monday for a reason. It's there to help and motivate everybody. So, like I always say in my channel, it's not how we fall. You can fall backwards so many times, but if you forward and see your mistakes, you can go back there a little easier. So that's the point of this to me, to help people. And Black Man, my big brother, thank you for us. He opened the platform because, like, Paul said, I go screw this shit up. And I'm good screwing shit up. I don't know how to say more of that. We might argue and scream each other, but we always learn from each other.
Yeah,
That's the point of sharing our story. And the biggest one, last one I want to finish is we all have a story. It's your unique story. Be
That's it.
happy to share it. Treasure it because your story only comes once. I'll leave my thoughts there.
Awesome. Well, again, so this is hopefully again episode 1. Like I said, be sure to join us next Sunday at 9:30. When we're going to go into, I believe, marriage. I think it's our next one, or growing up.
Hang on, I'll tell you right now.
How you want to do it next week? We
I'll
talked a
tell you.
little bit about growing up here, but specifically growing up, what's it like to grow up in a Greek family, or an American family for that matter? So
Yeah, we'll stick to the schedule. We have marriage on there. I just checked my notes.
we got marriage. Okay, so again,
let's
so
stick to
marriage
that.
is obviously talked about in this a lot in this space. So I'm definitely looking for, my only reference to Greek weddings is, again, those movies. My Big Fat Greek Wedding.
I
don't know how much. So maybe you can dispel the myth from the reality of things. What are weddings are like, and marriage in general. Within Greek society and whatnot, how that's viewed. Certainly, I'd be looking forward to that kind of conversation. So again, next week, 9:30 Eastern Standard Time, here on the Black Man Unfiltered Network, we're going to be delving into that again, the gray area of marriage, and again, hopefully, we can learn some things from a Greek perspective or Indian perspective. Again, if you're Latino, if you're Asian, if you're Indian, Nigerian, Kenyan, wherever, Ghanaian.
Doesn't matter where you're from. You're welcome.
Wherever you're from. I mean, bring your insights and perspectives. We'd love to hear from how marriage is treated. Because I said something on Lost in Translations show some time back. I think marriage is a universal grace that's given by God to humanity, and so I think that everyone, every culture has a view of marriage and whatnot. And so again, there's certainly things we can learn from that and apply to our own. I'm always about adding. Adding to, and Bruce Lee is one of my big influences. Absorb what is useful, discard what is useless, and add what is essential to your own. So again, if I can learn from me, I've learned a lot from marriage from Asian Indians who I've come to know and be in the IT field, and certainly I'd be looking forward to what could be learned from the Greek perspective, and sharing perspectives in general in terms of how our cultures approach marriage. So definitely looking forward to that next week.
Definitely.
All right. So everyone, again, thank you again for signing in. Thank you, Black David. Again, got to give my brother a shout out. Thank you for managing things in the back and keeping the show moving and flowing for us. Thank you again for the banner. Thank you for making us look at our best version of ourselves. I never saw myself in a gray, but again, I'm telling you, we're like Tubbs and again, Miami Vice. It's like we're like those guys. So maybe after this is over, we'll start a cop show or whatever. We'll another bro cop show, and we'll go out there and solve crimes together or something like that. But I really appreciate again this platform. So everyone else, have a great night. Enjoy your weekend. Happy Martin Luther King Day tomorrow for those who celebrate that. And again, his thing was not to see the color of one's skin, but the content of a man's character. And if we can all do better on that, then we would be fulfilling his dream. So with that, have a great night, everyone. We'll see you next time.
Fast lane when I pass in the street, bag of money in the passenger seat. Simcoe's been asking for me on the road from the west to the east. Way up, I might never come down, cause the coast racking up the flight miles. So high, I might never come down, so what, this is my lifestyle. Wait a minute, work hard for the car, so that's why it's all tinted. Wait a minute. Had a real late night, woke up with my head spinning out in Nashville. It's been mad real. I need sunglasses, I need Advil. I like fake booze and my cash real. I like first place, you're in last still. Fast lane when I pass in the street, bag of money in the passenger seat. Simcoe's been asking for me on the road from the west to the east. Way up, I might never come down, cause the coast racking up the flight miles. So high, I might never come down, so what, this is my lifestyle.
Look, pocket rocket in my pocket, please don't make me pop it. All these boys just wanna copy the style, tell them niggas stop it. Whoa, this my destiny, feeling like Latoya, like it found me my Beyonce, and she shotgun in the cockpit. Grinding with the team, making C-notes. In my pocket still full of green, call it CeeLo. Alligator watch on me, Tim Tebow. And these haters love to watch me like Tebow. Look, I don't take L's, I just learn a lesson. Before I count the M's, always count my blessings. Look, I'm too short, never second guessing. Got some money, put up for the rain, so I'm never stressing.
Fast lane when I pass in the street, bag of money in the passenger seat. Simcoe's been asking for me on the road from the west to the east. Way up, I might never come down, cause the coast racking up the flight miles.